Good afternoon, Senator Kerry, Representative Moonen, and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on the Judiciary. It's nice to see you all again. My name is Andrew Mead. I'm the Senior Associate Justice of the Maine Supreme Judicial Court. It's also my honor to serve as the chair of the Maine Justice Action Group, also known as JAG. Magistrate Judge Karen Wolf was with us earlier. She's with the Federal Court, District of Maine, but she was called away on urgent court business, but she sends her regards, otherwise would have been here today. On behalf of everyone, we want to thank you for this opportunity to briefly address you on the occasion of Access to Justice Day at the Legislature. For those of you who may not know, JAG is a judge-led coalition of organizations and individuals committed to civil access to justice. Our members include state and federal judges, nonprofit civil legal aid providers, University of Maine School of Law, the Maine Justice Foundation, the Maine Bar Association, Maine Trial Lawyers Association, the Maine Civil Legal Services Fund Commission, the Volunteer Lawyer Project, and Disability Rights Maine. And basically a group of people who are passionate about helping all Maine people access justice. JAG's primary missions include educating, informing, and raising awareness regarding civil legal services. That's why I'm here today. And again, I thank you for this opportunity today. You've already met some of the key players in the JAG coalition. They are wonderful people. They are committed, dedicated, doing some of the difficult and most important work of the profession and society in general. Civil legal services refers to legal services that are rendered to our neediest populations. And it needs to be distinguished from the criminal side, MCILS. MCILS, as you know, is the criminal side of things. On the other civil side, one of the key players is the Maine Civil Legal Services Fund Commission, MCLSFC. They kind of sound the same, don't they? And they get switched up when you start talking about them. But it's really important to draw that distinction between the criminal law, which, as I've said to you many, many times, we are in crisis. It's not on the horizon. The crisis is happening right now in the courts. My colleagues on the trial bench approached me on a daily basis saying, I just did 13 arraignments, couldn't find a single lawyer to take the case. They're all committed to jail in lieu of bail. And that's untenable. They have the right to have a lawyer argue the bail case. So that's a tough one. I know it's on your plate. But on the other side of the criminal picture is the civil side. And there's a crisis going on there also. And I hasten to point out that on the civil side, these are folks who also have constitutionally protected interests. It involves protection from abuse, domestic violence, housing, entitlement to services, healthcare, all constitutionally protected things, but they do not have an authority to go to get their assistance. They rely on Maine's dedicated civil legal services providers. They're the ones filling that constitutional gap. It's a tall order. And despite how well funded they could ever be, they'll never meet the need. You've heard me say this before. The Justice Index requires at least 10 legal services lawyers for every 10,000 entitled people. In Maine, we struggled to get one lawyer for those 10,000. We're grateful for the previous funding, which was able to get us just over the 2 level, so 2 lawyers for every 10,000, but still way below the Justice Index. As a judge, we see folks coming to court with court situations, having no idea really what it's all about. I mean, the law is complicated, and necessarily so. Lawyers, legislators often grapple with what it means. Think of someone who doesn't have the ability or the language or the background to be able to dive into it. So they come to court and they're nervous, they're scared, sometimes they're aggressive, but they feel that this is an uncomfortable setting for them. They come to court, and if they end up with an adverse result for what they believed was a righteous claim, they can only make one conclusion. This thing is stacked. This thing is working against me. The law is not my friend. Government is not my friend. And in an age when our cherished institutions are under attack everywhere, it seems, we can't afford one more disenfranchised, marginalized person. Civil legal services jump in to address that. It's something we all should be committed to. Our civil legal services providers work in concert to address the various needs: family matters, protection from abuse, eviction, the things I talked about. They communicate. I've been to gatherings of national ATJ commissions, and they exist in those states because the civil legal services providers are trying to eat each other's lunch. They duplicate services, and it's a very competitive setting. We are very fortunate to have providers that communicate. JAG is kind of an umbrella they operate under, but they still independently divide up the work to be done. They don't overlap. We're getting good bang for the buck with our legal services providers. Our civil legal services providers are on the front lines of combating cynicism and marginalization. By providing their legal services, they create a voice for these underserved populations. They were heard, and when they leave a setting, even if it's an adverse result, they know they were heard and they had someone helping them, and it's remarkable how they can accept the adverse result because they had a lawyer, and they will not be part of that disenfranchised, marginalized population I talked about already. So I think the message is clear. Legal services providers are critical to our function in society, both as government and citizens. I stand in awe of the dedication and commitment to justice that these providers have. They demonstrate every day of the year, and I thank them and I thank this committee for everything you've done to facilitate the important work they're doing. Now, as a footnote, I'll add in here, yes, it costs money to underwrite these things, but JAG's 2016 economic benefit study demonstrated that not only do the recipients of civil legal services benefit from representation, the economy in general, the community, reaps a significant identifiable economic benefit. So in conclusion, there is a nasty saying, and I am very loath to repeat it. I consider it to be obscene, but I will. Some people say, you're entitled to as much justice as you can afford. That's offensive, isn't it? I mean, that is an obscenity in a country where we believe in justice for all. The members of Justice Action Group reject this notion. I know you reject that notion. We believe in the American ideal, justice for all. So again, I thank you for your time and your kind attention. I'm available for questions. And frankly, the providers are here if you have questions or comments. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for your words today. And committee members, are there questions for Justice Mead?
Once going twice.
I actually have a question for you. Something that you touched on a tiny bit, but you in your written remarks, you talk about from your vantage point as a judge, you're sitting there on the bench watching a scenario unfold where you know justice is not being done. Can you elaborate on that a little bit to the committee?
I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously my remarks, should I say my extemporaneous remarks complement my written, or my written complements my extemporaneous. But I've been a state court judge for 34 years. I'm the longest currently serving jurist in the entire state. And if you add in the 10 years I served as the Penobscot Tribal Judge before that, I've been a judge for 44 years. But as I said in my comments there, it is so difficult for a judge when you see the people come in, they don't have a lawyer, and they're flub-dubbing around, and they make critical mistakes in how they're presenting the case. They believe they have a righteous cause, but they don't know the law. And sometimes they're aggressive and come in, swinging, and it makes court proceedings longer, more complicated, more difficult for everybody involved. But it tears my heart out because judges can't take one side or the other. We're the referees. We've got to call them as they come in. We can't help one side. So that's really a large part of why I'm here today talking about civil legal services, because I watch that and I say, this was not right. Somebody came in here. They might have had a defense under, fill in any affirmative defense you can think of, but it certainly wouldn't have occurred to them. And the lawyer on the other side can't help them because they have a duty to ethically represent their lawyer zealously. terrible result. We need more lawyers in the courtroom, period. Tears my heart out.